Do, 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 do. I don't know what's going on with me today, Jay.
So afraid because if people are watching it on YouTube, you're actually dancing.
I am dancing.
Uh,
It's because, and this is going to date this show, but
yeah.
it's because the finale of The Voice was last night. And you know how much I love to sing.
I can't believe you weren't on there. Maybe
Me, me,
next
me,
year.
me, me.
Maybe next year.
I've got to find some free time. I know everyone is sitting here thinking, God, that's disappointing. I'm shocked that she's not on The Voice. Good morning, Jay.
Good morning, Natalie.
Let's talk
The
about
voice.
caregiving.
Well, let's do, but I also, we can hashtag the voice. If you'll let Natalie come on and crush her dream, that'd be fantastic. Maybe she won't
I'm
sing
not sure
anymore
who's
on the
taking
show.
me. I don't think Reba's not even taking me. She's going to be like Reba does an unexpected choice. Like, and spoiler alert, in case you didn't watch it, Reba's the top two who were going to be winners last night
Shh, you broke it.
were her people. And I was like, eek. So sometimes Reba picks some people and I'm like, eek, I don't see it, Reba. And I'll be darned if she didn't. So anyway,
She pulled out that.
we digress. Let's
Yes, we
talk
did.
about the amazing guest we have today.
Hey, we have a guest?
Yes, we do. It's not just
Woohoo!
to talk about me and my voice endeavors.
Oh, we've totally gone crazy. We're off the tracks today. So,
Off the rails.
we do have a guest, and I'm super excited. Now, I have to tell you, in the beginning, I was like, this is going to be a really interesting guest. But today, and she is interesting, but it
I thought you
is
were
what,
just gonna- never
it is
mind, she's
what
not.
Christine does that actually had me a little apprehensive in the beginning. I was like, oh my gosh, we have had 2 conversations with Christine already. And it basically is like talking to another sister. So I will jump into a description of Christine and then
do it.
you guys get ready for a fantastic show. We have Christine Soza with us today, and she has cared for hundreds of people at the end of life as an experienced nurse, and considers it to be the highest honor to what she says hold space, providing care to comfort the dying. She empowers and supports their loved ones during this difficult time. But she has a caregiving story that started caring for her grandfather who had multiple strokes. And then she started out as a young teen taking care of an elderly woman with dementia named Harriet. And I'm excited to hear that story. These early experiences, they shaped who Christine is today, how she worked through twists and turns in her life. She says, I've always heard that it is the darkest before the light, that there were many dark days trying to balance work, family, and devastated losses within her own family and community. And Christine, you have turned that into something amazing. So we are so excited to have you here today with us.
Yay! I still want to figure out how to use that functionality with the on Riverside that claps. So for now though, Christine, because I think it's just a button that you push. But for now, you get Natalie's own like clapping. People are like, for God's sakes, JJ, shut her up. Christine, we are thrilled to have you on the show with us. We have played that too much this morning, but it's going to be a good one. I can feel it. Welcome to the show. We appreciate you being on here.
Thank you so much.
I know we love you. You guys are going to love Christine's voice. JJ was talking about it earlier. She's got the mama nurse. She's got the natural calming voice. I think it's going to help us today. It says in your caregiver story, I have been a caregiver for as long as I can remember. And I love that. And so typically I'll tell people, I'm like, start from the beginning. You were born and then skip to the good parts. But, tell us a little bit about your background and tell us how you really got into being a caregiver. Cause I know it's paid and unpaid. So let's hear some good stories and how this has evolved over your life.
Thank you. Gosh, thank you so much. You ladies are amazing. I just love the work that you're doing. And every time I listen to a confession, I'm moved to tears. And as I'm sitting here, I've been kind of reflecting. I shared with you earlier that I've been up very early thinking about my story, right? And it's like, I think about how did I get through all of that, right? And I was just reminded that we just do it. We just get through it, and lots of lovely lessons that have been learned along the way. But so thank you for having me. I am just it's just kind of been a part of me. My grandfather had, like you had mentioned, JJ. My grandfather had multiple strokes. I grew up in northern Idaho, and my grandparents retired, and then they moved up there, and so I got to really enjoy my formative years with them. My grandmother was a beautiful cook, and we helped cook can in the kitchen and garden and sewing. And I am not a cook. I am not a sewer. My grandma tried really hard to teach me all of those skills, but I can make a really good spaghetti sauce. I can claim that. So, but my grandfather had retired, and then he climbed up on a ladder, fell and broke his hip just right after he retired. And that's kind of what happens with people. Sometimes they work so hard, and then right after they retire, something happens, right? Yeah. And so he fell, broke his hip, and then he just had multiple strokes, one right after another. And I would think I was maybe about 10, and just watching him decline, and then my parents were trying to care for him as well as raising teenagers, and so I just kind of watched that process of. We weren't able to bring my grandfather home. We lived in a very small house on a mountain, and it just wasn't really. We weren't able to bring him home. And so he was in a care facility, and just really watching that progression of the disease and decline was really painful to watch for him and for my family. And so I went through school and I was like the after school special. I was involved in all sorts of activities, and most kids my age were babysitting, and I was grandma sitting, which is wild. Like, I've never heard that phrase before. And so we have my mom was actually so the secretary of my school was had a mother who had dementia, and so she was her primary caregiver, and she was exhausted. She was working full time, taking care of her mother, and really needed some support. And so she asked if I would help take care of her mom so that they could get away for the weekend. And so it became a thing, right? And so I just stayed with Harriet on the weekends, and we ate cookies and drank tea. And she had, like, your headphones are so cute to me, but she had, like, this was in the 80s, and she had headphones like this big, and she was like little tiny person.
Okay, that's fantastic.
And she just was like singing the old rugged cross, and oh my gosh, I couldn't believe that I was actually getting paid to just hang out with Harriet. And so that kind of began my journey of just really embracing people that were older than me and just listening to their stories. And I just loved helping her. And so it was kind of natural for me to become a CNA. So that's what I did in my late teens. I became a certified nurse's assistant, and that was like, oh my gosh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I would be the person hanging out and just hanging out with people after their shift and just holding their hands. And it just seemed really natural for me to just move into that space. So I just loved it. I just loved it. And
so let me ask you this, because I'm going to stop you because you're going to keep going. And I'm like, no, go back. Go back. No, I want to talk a little bit more about Harriet. And how long did you support Harriet? Were you part of the team?
I think maybe 2 or 3 years. It was it was a while. Yeah, I think I probably started my sophomore year, maybe. So until I graduated high school. Yeah. Yeah.
And so was this, I didn't catch it. Was this paid, or was this, I'm going to go over and help? So this was paid. I love the grandma setting.
I love that. What a great concept, especially nowadays when of course you have that opportunity to babysit younger kids, but there's so many people who keep parents or loved ones at home, and they do need just that, because I think you said Harriet had dementia. Is that right? It wasn't really a lot of medical needs. It was just she needed companionship, and that's what so many people need. Somebody that watches them to make sure they don't get in trouble, like a 2-year-old. Sometimes that kind of mentality.
Yeah.
So no, and I don't think many people think about that as I think Emily, our youngest sister, was always did babysitting. I think she started babysitting when she was like 14 or 15. I mean, she was very young. It was before she could drive for sure. Because I know that, Jay, I think you would drop her off.
We would drop her off.
And she loved the babies. Emily's always been the mama of the three of us. She just loves babies. She loves babies. She really does. Loves children, especially. And so I don't think a lot of people would think about engaging young people to necessarily grandparent set or provide assistance support, because it's called babysitting. And it's no different than daycare for adult day programs, and shifting that, the way that you look at that mindset of, well, it's not daycare like I'm a baby. Because I think there's power in words, if you think about it. And sometimes that power can be not great. And so the fact that you did that as a young person, I mean, I remember I'm sitting there thinking, Jay, I'm like, oh, when I would stay with Memo like 5 nights a week, it's kind of like grandma sitting. And I never really put it that way. That really struck a chord with me when you said grandma sitting. I'm like, I totally did that. And so, but Harriet was not related though, right?
No.
I didn't think so.
No. She was so amazing. Her daughter was just working full time. She was the secretary of my school. And, and really I was providing respite care. I don't even know if that was what it was called back then, but that's what we were providing. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
go ahead.
No, go ahead, Jay.
So I'm interested to see, and I know you shared the stories, but you recognize, first of all, because I know you said you recognized that she needed time away, her daughter, and she needed, because she was 24/7 caring. But you then said, okay, I like doing this. Whereas some people saw it as a duty and a responsibility sometimes when, I got to stick around with grandma, you said, hey, I want to do this. So you jumped in and said, okay, I'm going to be a CNA. I'm going to do that. So how's this progress?
Education-wise
or job-wise, as you're caring, I guess, professionally.
Yeah, I think one of the things too that was really important to me, I grew up in 4-H. I grew up in a very small community. And, part of I can't even remember it's been so long what the 4-H's mean. Oh,
Heart,
you know it?
Health, home, and hands.
Hands is one of them.
Yeah. So I just, I probably did 10 years of 4-H, and I think that really, for any young person who's just looking for some kind of community, support, and just, I did all sorts of things. I did a little bit of cooking, a little bit of sewing, leather crafts, ceramics, but the big thing was the community, right? And just supporting community. We would, put flowers on our neighbors' doorsteps on May Day. We were always doing service work in the community, and I just think I think that was just kind of deeply ingrained in me from a very early age, to just really love and respect and care for our elders. I think one of the things that I love, I don't know if I could ever work with babies like your sister. To me, the beginning of life is kind of like, I don't know. They just,
the same way.
I'm just like, I had my son, but that was enough. And I just felt like it just wasn't intuitive for me to be at the beginning of life. But I just love people that are, are older. They just hold all this sacred wisdom, and I just eat it up. I just love it. I just love hanging out with older people. And so it was just kind of a natural progression for me to just become a CNA. And so my first gig as a nurse's assistant was at a nursing home. And I don't know, healthcare does not seem like it's improving at all, because we were so short staffed back then. We're still short staffed. I feel like it's even worse at this point. But I was taking care of 20 or 30 patients on, I was doing double shifts all the time. But there were people that were really sick and needed tender, loving care, and it just really seemed like it was really important for me to be there, and I felt like I was doing something valuable.
Oh, we need more people like you in the field. I'm going to tell you, Christine, honestly, your best staff doing direct care, whether it's working with adolescents or you're working with anyone, aging population, whatever, is typically you look for people who just generally care, because you can teach skill typically.
Yeah.
And it's character, and everything I hear and what you're saying, I'm like, ooh, character. That's character. You know what I mean? Because it's hard to teach care in the sense of like, I genuinely care for you. I'm empathetic to you, and I want to support you. And I think that's a lot of times what we miss. But people know the good ones. People know the people who will help them. And you are clearly a natural born caregiver, natural born. So.
Yeah, thank you. I think I think there's some truth in that also, and just being mindful about, like, every time I care for someone, I just think like this could be my grandma, right? So just really trying to just be mindful about, this is a person and they have needs, and I don't know, it just makes me feel good. So the natural progression for me was just to go into nursing. So I went through nursing school and got my LVN or LPN license. And so by 22, I was a full-fledged nurse, and my first gig was on oncology. And that was amazing. That was an amazing experience. It was in the late 80s, early 90s. And there were, I haven't worked on the hospital unit, but they used radioactive pellets. And so there were folks in the hospital that were receiving this radiation treatment, and they were very isolated because as nurses, we were limited on the amount of time that we could be in the room. But I would just kind of hang out by the door and at least provide some company for them, try to, help them, give them physical care, but then had to really, for my safety, back up a little bit. And then also we had a lot of AIDS patients on the unit that I worked on. And that was a powerful experience. There was a lot of concern about caring for the AIDS patients, especially early on. And I just, again, was just, these folks need love and tender care and dignity. And, I remember holding hands of several patients with AIDS, just giving them the opportunity to just create some space for them. And it's just powerful to provide space and just listening, and then also just touch, for anyone in general. So that was just a really powerful experience to kind of step into that space. And so I just got busy working and having family, and just kind of moved out of that space. So, and it's been 32 years. It's crazy.
Oh, well, you know what? I'm going to stop right there, because I can't believe, Jay, we're already at time for our first break. I think it's because we goofed off at the beginning, but we'll be right back.
Hey, everybody. So we're back here with Christine Soza, and we're talking about the power of being with someone, the power of touch, the power of just being present. And Christine, you've worked on the oncology floor. You've worked with AIDS patients. You've worked as these people have transitioned, and you have such a gift for that. But you started having family. You started in your life.
You mean life happened?
Life happens. So let me, as you're going through that time where you're working on that floor and you're dealing with that part, which a lot of people would see that as sadness and grief. How did that with you? Did you take that home with you? Did you carry that grief? Did anybody say to you, are you crazy? You've got a husband, or you're having kids. How did that impact your life personally and your own emotions? How did that happen?
It was hard. I was 22, and I had seen more death than I think a normal 22-year-old had seen at that point. And now looking back, I didn't do a very good job of self-care, and I learned not very healthy habits, coping mechanism. But when I look back, I realize now the work that I'm doing now, I really just need to take time and just even 30 minutes of just quiet that I can really be able to kind of process. I have this a thing called a grief bowl that I put little crystal heart-shaped rocks or crystals that are shaped in hearts, and it's a big glass bowl. And so every time I lose a client or a patient or a person that I love dearly, I put a heart in the grief bowl. And I actually borrowed the idea from a doula named Gabby Jimenez. She's just this beautiful soul. And so I really I light a candle for someone, and then I hold the grief bowl and I just say a prayer for them and their loved ones as they journey on. And I wished I would have had some of those tools in the beginning, because I didn't really do well at all. And so I just kind of compartmentalized it and then just kind of moved forward. So I didn't do well. But after working oncology, I did start doing clinic nursing, which was kind of a fun thing to do. And then I worked in a hyperbaric chamber, which is totally random, but it's actually a lovely a chamber that helped treat people with investigational diseases like Lyme disease and cerebral palsy. There were just some really cool things that were happening inside this chamber. And so that was kind of more of we're seeing results, and healing was possible. So I've kind of always been kind of on the fringe of my nursing, just the type of care that I provided. So
I want to kind of transition, because you're talking about paid care. And so there comes a point when you come back into unpaid care, where the role shifts, the position shifts. You go from nurse, and you're treating a patient and supporting their family, to the family of the patient, working with the practitioners. Let's transition to that. When did that come about?
For me, caring for my family.
Yeah.
That it happened kind of early for me. I kind of call it the lovely squishy Oreo cookie, where you're still raising your children and then your aging parents, start declining. And so my husband and I were in the creamy, delicious middle part of chaos. It was utter chaos and painful at times. And my dad, my mom had been diagnosed with diabetes, and she had end stage renal failure and started dialysis, and she had that for several years, and we just always felt like she would go first. And my dad, out of the blue, developed metastatic lung cancer. He was diagnosed and then passed away in 54 days. And our relationship was not, I wish, of course, looking back, I wish that I would have, we struggled. And so, but when I got the call that he was sick, I showed up, and I just dropped everything and I showed up for him. And he had, he went through medical treatment, and he just was like, I'm going to live for a year. They only gave him 6 to 9 months, and he died in 54 days. And so, but he had not all end of life experiences are, some are very hard. And, but I was really grateful for the experience that I had, because it really was a beautiful end of life experience. And I just got to show up for him, and he died in a hospice unit. And, but that was really hard. And I didn't really, deal with it very well at all. I had I call it loose ends. I didn't really have the opportunity to tie up loose ends. I did the very best that I could. But then caring for my mom became almost a full-time job. She needed to be taken to a medical appointment. She was about 2.5 hours away from me. And so, it was like taking a day off once a month to take her to an appointment. And then it was every 2 weeks. And then I would be going to see her every week to give her injections. And then one day I called her the night before and said, Mom, I'm going to come and take you, or I'll be there on Saturday. And she said, no problem, hung up the phone. And then I arrive at her house about noon, and she was on the floor. I thought she had passed away. She had fallen, passed out. And that was just a horrifying experience, to find your mom on the floor thinking that she had passed. So I think she was down on the floor for 16 or 18 hours and couldn't get herself up. And at that point, we had been making forward motion to bring her to the community that I was living in. And she had she was resistant. She didn't want to leave her home, but I just couldn't. I couldn't manage my household and her being so far away. So she agreed to come to the town that I lived in, and then that was very hard. That was really
Well, let
hard.
me ask you this. I want to push back to your dad for a sec. Trust me. We get the hard pieces of it, especially relationships are complicated. Family is complicated. That's what I'm going to say. Yeah. Always have this question. Are you an only child?
No, I have an older sister.
Okay. And it sounds like were you the lead in caregiving, especially because I hear you saying, I live 2.5 hours away. Where does your older sister live?
She lived about 4.5, 5 hours away from my parents. Yeah. Okay. And she had a younger child too.
So what were the conversations like? Because your dad got sick. Because I want to talk about how caregiving definitely impacted you. And I hear that when your mom moved, that was a definite change. I like the cookie analogy, the middle of chaos. It is so true. It is the middle of chaos. And when you're in it, you're like, oh, look, there's a tornado and it's flying around me. I just see things flying like paper and appointments. And caregiving is like a tornado. It just circles around you and involves, you know what I mean? For that visual, I hadn't even thought about that, but it really does. I just keep thinking about that cow from Twister. like, woo! And so what were the conversations with your sister like? Had you and your family planned? Because I know our family, we did not plan. We did not talk about death. Everybody was living forever.
That's right. That's right. We all, yes, all of that. No conversations at all. No conversations. And my sister was doing the best that she could. You know, there was, I think because I'm in the medical field, that it became assumed, you know, that, but I also, you know, I think I really wanted to, like, I just intuitively knew I really wanted to be with my dad as much as possible. And so there was just I don't know. You know, my mom wasn't physically able to drive him to appointments. And so it was my sister and I trying to manage all of his radiation appointments. And it was just like, I'm doing it. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, I'm just doing it. And so I don't even remember having a conversation. I remember my dad really started to decline the last time he was hospitalized. And there was no discussion at all about their end of life wishes. My parents had made a will, but that wasn't discussed with us at all, or that I can remember. And I remember my dad getting very close. He was admitted to the hospital in San Francisco at the VA hospital. And I remember, you know, in a hospital room, my dad had a neighbor. The curtain was closed, but the neighbor could hear everything that we were saying. And the hospital was asking me, does your dad have a DNR? He has metastatic lung cancer. He's clearly terminal. I was in complete denial. He was in complete denial. And they asked, does your dad have a DNR? And I said, not that I'm aware of. And so having this conversation about, Dad, if your heart stops, if you stop breathing, do you want them to do CPR? And he asked me what CPR was. And so I'm trying to explain to him, they're going to probably break your ribs. They're going to intubate you. Having this hard conversation with my dad. And he just said, no, let me go. I'll be ready to go if that happens. And so we made the choice to make him a DNR. And then he quickly declined after that. But I think those conversations should happen way sooner than that. But sometimes I think most people, like you said, are really, those are just really hard conversations to have, but I think they're so important. So that really taught me a lot about being more brave. I remember driving in the car with my dad, listening to, taking him to radiation appointments. And we were super close when I was a kid, but we became distant as adults. And I remember driving him in the car, and he loved Willie Nelson. Oh my gosh, he loved Willie Nelson. And country music was not like my thing, because I'm a girl from the 80s, right? But he loved Willie Nelson, and the song "You Are Always on My Mind" came on, and he just was kind of tapping his hand on the window of the truck, and the window down, and he was like, "Oh, I love this song," and And I really regret asking him, like leaning in, like, why did you love that song? Why was that your favorite song? I missed opportunities that now today, like I ask all sorts of questions. I really am emboldened to like ask those questions because I don't want to have any regrets. And so, sorry, I kind of veered way off, but
no, this
I
feels
think
exactly right.
yeah, and that's the lessons that we always, in caregiving and the full spectrum, we want people to learn because as you say that, I think about all the things because our dad passed suddenly and a massive heart attack. We always thought our mom would go first and dad passed at 58. But I think about all the things that I always thought there'll be time to talk about that. He's busy. I'm busy. You wish you'd taken that one phone call. You wish that you had done this one thing. And when the time comes, those wishes are great, but you can't go back. And so learning that lesson and then sharing that with what you do, I just think that there was a reason for all of that, Christine.
I will say I visualize, I can see the window down and your dad's hands tapping, Christine. Like it reminds me of our dad because I feel like your dad probably had big hands too. Your dad, you said VA and I thought military, and but I just see him as I just have a sense in my mind of what your dad's probably personality was a little bit like man's man kind of feel, and we know that, and so our dad loved country music. So I think about things like that. I'm like, oh, that's my heart for you. And so I think you're right because I think about like, you don't want to have these conversations in the hospital because you're in such a place of stress and you can't think of the questions that you need to ask. And so when you're in a place where you're like where you feel safe and comfortable and there's no threat, you think about fight, flight, or freeze and how our brains respond to threat. When we're in full caregiving mode, I am either on super point or I am like, I can't hear because my ear, the inner muscle in your ear closes up because you're in this chronic, you're like, and it's not a tiger that's jumping out at you, but caregiving is the equivalent of the saber-toothed tiger. Yeah. Like you can either shut down or you become acutely aware, but your focus is on certain things. And so I think it's so important to have those conversations outside, especially of a hospital setting. And people don't want to have them. I think you have to just acknowledge, we don't want to talk about our death. Like it's graphic. You just said, well, this is what they're going to do. They're going to break your ribs. Pass DNR. Honestly, that would be me. And then you're like, oh, well, maybe you could, I won't notice. So I think that's really hard.
It is.
So your mom, let's fast forward. Your mom is progressively advancing in her own illness. You find her on the floor and it's every person's nightmare, right? You walk upon somebody and you're like, one, that's traumatic to see that in the first place. And I do think that probably your nursing, let me ask you this, even though you're a trained nurse, you are still a daughter first.
Right.
So when you walk in, have you got daughter hat on or you go automatically into nurse mode? Like
nurse always. Yeah. Because I know that she's been on the floor for 16 or 18 hours. She hasn't done her dialysis in 24 hours. She's not taking her medications. She is completely swollen. So her blood pressure, she has no blood pressure because she keeps passing out. So I think it's hard to turn off the medical brain. So, I remember when my dad was passing away in the hospice unit at the hospital, the nurse said to me, the hospice nurse, I'll never forget. She's just like, you let us be the nurse, you just be the daughter. And I think that's why it was such a beautiful experience for me because I just got to rub lotion on him, rub his feet. I got to read, I was reading my favorite book to him when he was passing away. That was not the same experience that I had with my mom because I couldn't stop being the nurse. Yeah. At that time when I was caring for my mom, there was, just to kind of add some more fun and excitement in that time, my husband's parents, also their health started to fail. Oh my gosh. And so I look back and I'm like, how did we ever get through that? But his parents were really failing quickly. And so my mom was failing quickly. The teenage kids were kind of being teenagers, and so we moved my husband's parents up, my in-laws up to the town that we lived in. So all of a sudden we have my mom living about a few miles away. I've got my mother-in-law living in a nursing home. We're trying to get her well enough to bring her home, knowing full well that she's total care. Like she had multiple strokes as well. She would be 24-hour care. My father-in-law moved in with us. He lived with us for at least a couple of years. And then we're trying to keep my mom as independent as possible, down the road. It was crazy. And I was working full time. My husband was working out of town. I mean, it was like, how do people get through that? I don't know, but we did.
Well, and I'm gonna actually interrupt because I gotta take a break. I do not want to have to put a break in the middle of this. We'll be right back because we're gonna come right back into this.
Okay.
Hey everybody, we're back. Okay, I'm gonna give you a fast recap here of everybody's location. Christine,
we got the sandwich of chaos going on.
Christine, her husband, her kids, they're at the house. Her son, they're at the house. She has her mom living up the street on dialysis, caring for her. She has a father-in-law that is in her home, living full-time. And she has a mother-in-law they're trying to get out of assisted care. So, okay. Oh, my gosh.
And then you're working.
Right? And you're married.
And you're married. Oh, wait, do you have kids, right?
Yes,
you have that one son. So, I mean, like, what is your personal life? Like, how is this impacting your personal life at this point? Not them, you.
I'm not doing very well at all. I think, you're just surviving. I'm just surviving. And I don't know how you get through that. You just do. I think about one instance of my mom. I love my mom. Don't get me wrong. I loved her, but she was so slow in everything that she did. And I would tell her, okay, mom, she has to go to the grocery store, get some groceries. And so it'd be like, okay, mom, I'm getting off work at 5:00. I've got to make sure that I feed my father-in-law at home. So, so I like kind of put some snacks out for him. And then I go after work and I'm like, pulling up to her house. She knows at an hour ahead, mom, I'm coming to get you. Right. And she comes walking out and she's not even dressed. It's like 5 and and I'm just like, and so she's like, oh, I need to eat. And so, it's like going to the grocery store at 10:00 at night and she has to like look at every single label. It's like and then she goes at the check stand, this is in the day where you're writing checks and she's just like the gal's checking out all of her things. And my mom's just like, gonna be writing her check, and my mom could have written her check out while she was talking. I mean, and I was just like 10 or 11 o'clock at night, this was ongoing. And bless my mom, that was her going out. Right. And so I really I regret so much really missing those opportunities of why couldn't I just enjoy the time with her? Why did I just feel so stressed? I really, I want to encourage caregivers to, I know it's hard. I know firsthand how hard it is. You have to find the magic and the joy in the middle of caregiving. Otherwise, you will wither on the vine. And that's what happened to me. I really wasn't sure if I really wanted to be on the planet anymore. And so I really want to encourage people that, after looking back, I think about my mom, I guess I was a busy kid, and so I just think about all the times that she cared for me. And of course I would step up and care for her. But I really do think that no matter how hard it is, we have to find joy and we have to be able to find ways to do self-care, even if it's just 5 or 10 minutes. I just didn't get it. I just didn't get it during that time. I didn't understand. And I just got really sick. I did not do well because they all died in a very short amount of time. We had a huge amount of loss in a short amount of time. I didn't do well.
Oh, wow. So what did you do to pull yourself out? What did you do? Because you're sitting there saying, because this is what people are going to want to know. Like, I've been there. I've been in that dark place. Typically, it's a snot sandwich for me. And I call one of the sisters. And I am in such a bad place. And I'm questioning everything I'm doing. I'm questioning, like, it's never good enough. This is where the title, Confessions of a Reluctant Caregiver. The reluctance is, I suck like an Electrolux. Nothing is winning. It is just miserable.
Yeah.
And you just want to quit and go hide in, because I can remember I told Jay, I feel like I just want to go hide in a corner and no one asked me any questions, because that's how I felt. And people who know me would be like, that's never you. I'm such an outgoing person, but there would be times that I just wanted to just crawl inside of myself and not be responsible for anything. Make no decisions. How did you get through that?
I think, to be honest with you, my body told me to stop. So, I think our body, I think looking back, I lost my mom. So I think in 2016, my mother-in-law passed away. In 2017, my mom passed away. 2 months later, my grandmother passed away. Two very important women in my life passed away in a short amount of time. And then 2018, my father-in-law passed away. We lost our dog. And then there was a catastrophic fire that happened in our community where 85 people lost their lives and an entire town was lost. And there is something true to be said about a collective trauma, and half my friends lost their homes, and just an entire town was lost to this fire. It was devastating, and so by that time I had just not, like mentioned, I just did not care for myself at all. I think back, there was a nurse that I used to work with, and I'm just going to say it out on public. Linda, I am so sorry I said this to you, but she had been in a car accident, and she was just physically having some issues from the car accident, and she would leave work to go get a massage. And I said to her shamefully, I'm like, oh, good for you. That must be nice to get a massage, right? And what I didn't realize is that she needed to have those massages every 2 weeks in order for her to continue working and to be out of pain. And I didn't understand that, and I shamed her. And so, Linda, I'm so sorry I did that to you. I now understand the importance of self-care. I kind of come from the generation, just buck up, buttercup, and you just push through it. You just don't think about it, and we weren't taught self-care. And so I think that my body just decided to just say, nope, you're going to stop. And so I just got really sick. And I needed to take time to rest. So that's what I did. I took this forced pause that actually turned out to be the biggest blessing. And then at that time, my husband was diagnosed with cancer. So we were
oh my gosh,
in it again.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you this. This is crazy, Jay. We're at the end of our time. Like, literally, I know. And so here's the thing. We're going to have Christina come back, but we're also going to stay on after. Okay. Yeah. We're actually, I want to stay on after and do after the confession. And we're going to open that one up. So there's more to this story. I want to hear more, Christine. So guys, I'm going to close this out right now, Jay. Sound like a plan to you?
And then we're going to come back with
we're going to come right back
after the confession, but the confession's
exactly
still going.
Right. Yeah, that's right. We're coming back to after the confession. Guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Christine, rude. Love you. Hold tight. We'll be right back. Guys, thanks for listening in to Confessions. We'll see you next time.